Hey everyone, it's Bob Crossan. I'm the editorial director for Wastewater Digest, and I am joined today by Michaela Rempkowski. She is design integration director for McCarthy Building Companies. Thank you so much for being here, Michaela.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a
And
great time to speak to you.
yeah, this isn't the first time that we've had an interview with you, although this is the first time that we've interviewed you as a 2023 WWE Young Pro. So we're going to talk a little bit about your career and some aspirations you have, and even what you think the shape of the industry will look like in the future. So why don't we start with that? First of all, congratulations on being
Oh,
named one of our Young Pros.
so humbled. There's so many great young professionals out there. And even one of my colleagues, Sagrado, got invited, and he's incredible. And so just completely honored to be part of that, the 2023's class of young professionals.
Oh yeah. Well, I think your work history kind of precedes you a little bit here, but could you talk a little bit about your career history? How did like why water first of all, and then like how did you like get to the position that you're in now?
Yeah, so a little bit of my history. I'm a first generation college student. Went to college, had no idea what I was doing, but wanted to study chemistry and math. Ended up a chemical engineer, got to the end of that, was given two options at graduation: cheese plant or oil field, neither of which sounded like they hit my core values. Luckily, I had a mentor who was also a chemical engineer who worked in water. Prior to meeting her, I had never thought about where water came from or where it went. It just wasn't a thought. Not that I thought something different than what it was. It just never came to me that I needed to know that. After getting into water, I found that designing water and wastewater plants, doing design build, things like that, just kind of match my core values. And for me, going to college and studying chemistry and math was all about how do I take care of my family, in terms of I had a lot of people in my life that had health issues. So I really wanted to do something scientific that could help them. And so taking care of people, taking care of my community. We had a very tight knit community. Those are my core values, and water allows me to do that from my community, from multiple communities, and so it really touches to that core value. And then my other core value is kind of innovation, collaboration, being able to take multiple ideas and make it something great and something that will make an impact today, tomorrow, 50 years down the line when I'm not here. And it's so incredible to be part of something like that. So a little bit addicted to water now.
I I think it's really interesting. You seem to you talk about those two core values, and I can see just from reading your title alone how they kind of both work together to meet that. Could you talk a little bit about like what your day to day is like about like how you bring those disparate pieces together, and what your day to day and your actual role is like as well?
Yeah, so my day-to-day actual role, it's unique to the water industry. So on the construction side, I like to say a reformed engineer. But what I do is I translate construction and design through many different ways. Essentially, we work on collaborative delivery projects, design builds or CMARs. The engineer will come up with a great design that we can take a look at and from a construction perspective. From the construction's perspective, what we're looking for is cost efficiency, safety, quality, things like that, and not so much performance and end goals and effluent quality and capacity, things like that. So my goal is to translate those constructability comments, safety, efficiency, quality into something that still can perform and still meet the goals of the project. A lot of my position now, as I've grown on the construction side, is growing out our services. So it's been a lot of fun to kind of be this entrepreneur of this service, but starting to add service lines. So we're starting to add a VDC component for the 3D modeling, coordination, collaboration in design phase, but also just understanding what your plant's going to look like before it's built, and then how can we improve it before it's built. And we're also adding startup and commissioning as a key focus. If, a lot of research is out there about how well startup and commissioning goes, and it all depends on if your focus is in design phase. And so today, a lot of my job is to build those teams, encourage them, develop them, make sure we're providing the right services and continuously improving. It's a lot of fun to kind of build this mini business within a traditional line of industry, which is construction.
Yeah. Well, it is really interesting because I know that you've been involved in quite a number of projects at this point in your career. Are there any that stick out to you as professional accomplishments, or are there other professional accomplishments that you could speak to? Something that you really are really proud of?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, water, it's just so rewarding because every time you complete a project, you're impacting a community for decades. So it's really hard to say there was one project that really spoke to my professional achievement or anything that I'm proud of, because I'm proud of all of them. I think the thing that I'm probably most proud of today is being able to be in a position like this where I'm able to grow teams and grow people. Um, Prior to this position, I was working on the technical side, really focused on
Hmm.
myself, really focused on the drawings, the plans, the outcomes. And I didn't think that I could stretch like this. I didn't think I could stretch and focus on people development and full business aspects. And it's just fun to see my growth in leadership, my growth in business practices. And I would say daily, I'm pretty proud of some of those accomplishments, the small accomplishments I make every day.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you can find pride in a lot of things. It doesn't have to be, oh, this big project that was X amount of dollars that had this much flow, right? It can be as simple as like, I built a really good team for our design group here, and we're gonna do some really incredible things. And knowing that you have, you think about roses, buds, and thorns, right? Like, oh, the rose is I built this good team. The bud is what they're going to accomplish, and a thorn might be, it was a pain to get here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's awesome to see what they're coming up with and how they're executing on every project and just it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that the more you work in the industry and the more that you get into leadership roles like you're moving into, the more you start to be more proud of the work that the people that work for you do. And I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit because you have one question I like to always ask our young professionals is how you think your generation will influence the industry. But knowing that you have built this team and whatnot, I presume some of that is for the next generation of water workers as well. How do you think they're going to influence the industry too? So let's start first with how you think your generation has changed the industry, and then what you think the future looks like for them leading in the charge, essentially.
Yeah, I think for my generation, we had a lot of access to information, not endless access that's given today. But I think what that did was it gave us a broader perspective on what could be. We weren't
Mm-hmm.
limited to what we thought should happen. We were asking each other questions. We were being more collaborative. We were open to change. We didn't want to just focus on one thing. We wanted to focus on multiple things. And I think we're getting more well-rounded projects. We're getting leaders that are adaptive and flexible. We're getting solutions that are outside of the box, things we haven't seen in a long time. And I think it's a lot of that generation kind of stirring the pot of we've always done it this way. Let's keep doing it that way. For the generation coming up, what I'm most excited about is their access to information. They've always had access to information, endless amounts of information, even information about each other through social media and other cell phones, text messages, things like that. It's instantaneous data, whether it's facts or just kind of empathy across the nation. So we're seeing a lot of really cool, I would say, innovative solutions. We're seeing AI come up. We're seeing data analytics come up. We're better integrating different platforms to see the whole picture of a project, even things that you wouldn't just normally be able to see, even if you were an expert. So I'm really excited about that. The other thing that I feel like they're bringing is kind of a culture and art to what we're doing in the
Mm.
technical practice. I think they think beyond just the infrastructure, just the performance. It's what does this look like to people? What impact am I leaving? How do people feel about it? Um, what can we do to make this more interactive or better educate our communities? And with that, they're working with each other. They're talking about these great ideas, and they're creating a kind of entrepreneurial culture around them, which is fun and exciting to see.
That's really cool. I never thought about like, we do some of these plans are very artful, right? I love the idea of presenting it more forward as a piece of art. Because you look at a building and they talk about architecture being art. Why can't a wastewater plant also be art, right? Like, look
Yeah.
at all the things it does and how effectively it does those things. How is that not something that's artful?
Exactly. And if we can make it something both artful and educational, I think we can kind of dig it up from being buried or hidden, and be something that people know more about and are excited about and want to interact with.
Yeah, totally agree with that. As pivoting just a little bit in terms of questions, I wanted to ask you just about like outside of work. What are some of the things that you like to do outside of work? How do you decompress? Are there? I heard that you're involved in some sports, namely rugby. Are what types of things do you like to do outside of work?
Yeah, so back to the rugby piece, mostly what I like to do outside of work is stay active. I've been an athlete my whole life. Rugby is just one of those things that I keep up with today, which doesn't seem right. Probably should give that up at this point, but I'm a young professional, so
Yes.
I could keep doing rugby. But yeah, rugby's been a passion of mine. I love mountain biking or walking my dog. I would say recently, I I've been doing a lot of landscaping and yard work, which a lot of people say, hey, hire out, but I really enjoy working outside and seeing that kind of finished product, and it takes your mind off of screens and um, chats and calls and desks and all of that stuff, and it just connects you with physical work, which is a lot of fun for me and it clears my mind. So
Yeah,
um,
it's
that's
meditative.
it is. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. Start thinking about how tired you are and how hot it is outside, not so much about the big project you got coming up or how you're going to build out your team in the next way.
Yeah. One thing that I is a theme I feel like I catch with all the young professionals is that when I do ask them about their hobbies, a lot of what they end up talking about is stuff like this of getting closer to nature. And I think that it ties really well with the values of the industry, but the theme that I always recognize is how meditative that experience ends up being for them, and it allows them to excel more in work because they're taking that break that they need to take.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I always think that my best ideas come when I'm walking my dog or sitting outside and just not really trying or not
Hmm.
really having to focus on multiple things. It's just when I'm most creative, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. You, as you're walking your dog, you reach the end of your thoughts, and suddenly the most creative ones come to light.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, where's my notebook?
Yeah, exactly. Well, last question here is what is a message that you would say as a WWE young pro? What is a message that you would say to other employers in the industry who are struggling with hiring and retention right now? How like what would you say to them to try and target and reach these new people who are, like you said, are looking at the industry in an artful way and have these core values like you espoused for yourself?
Yeah, I would say some of the big things for me anyway was one, employee ownership. What employee ownership? I've always had jobs for companies that were employee owned, and what it has done for me is it just surrounded me with people who are very um, like-minded. They're all in. They want to give it their all because it's their business too. And I've never seen that type of culture. Um, Outside of employee-owned businesses. So I really value that. From a personal standpoint, I would say finding out what people's core values are and really understanding how those strengths will play into the role that they're going to play, and letting them be creative in that role. How can their strengths advance that role or make it more innovative or take it in a different direction that might be beneficial for water and wastewater infrastructure. So kind of cultivating those core values, those strengths in somebody, even though it might be different from the standard job description that you're sending out. And I would say be flexible. In this day and age, we've got a lot going on. We have a lot of information. We have a lot of ideas. We're very entrepreneurial. We're very creative. But we also need the space to do that, and we need the space for that downtime and nature and doing what is meditative to us so that we can replenish our minds and then get back to it.
Yeah. A great message. Thank you so much, Michaela.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, for everyone who's watching, check out our video description below. We'll have a link to the list of all of our young pros that we've been featuring this year. We'll have some more video interviews with some of those throughout the rest of this month. And once more to you, Michaela. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a great conversation with you and Wastewater Digest. It's been an honor to be part of the 2023 Young Professionals again. Thank you so much.